Almost all Christians pray for protection, but most miss critical elements they should be including. Do you know the main elements that you should be including in your prayer for protection? The element I'm sharing today is a bit controversial, but your prayer will be lacking without it. Hear me out and judge for yourself. Yes, there are times when you're going to cry out with something like, Jesus, or help me, Lord Jesus. These are urgent pleas for help that the Lord does respond to. But what I'm talking about is praying in advance, before the crisis or tragedy. Dr. Dave here, sharing part 2 of a 4-part series on prayers for protection. If you're not including declarations in your prayer, you're missing the second key element to an effective prayer for protection. There are actually 3 different types of declarations that you should be including in your prayer for protection. Today, I'm going to go over each of these and give you scriptural examples. Declarations are often misunderstood, so let's clear up one thing immediately. When you're making a declaration in prayer, you are not telling God what to do. I've heard people do this, and honestly, I think it's off base and foolish at best. Declarations are you speaking into the spiritual and physical realms. They are a way of you putting the spiritual forces of darkness on notice. More importantly, you are declaring your choice and your faith out loud so your own ears get to hear it. This helps your body, soul, and spirit come into agreement or alignment. Effective prayer requires faith, but if your inner being isn't in agreement, then your faith is going to be challenged with things like doubt and fear and insecurities. The first type of declaration is praise, and this is where you're declaring the goodness, the faithfulness, or the majesty of God. When you exalt the Lord like this, you're declaring that He is worthy of praise and that He is faithful no matter what your circumstances are. In a subtle way, this helps your thoughts and your emotions come into alignment with your faith. This also lets the spiritual forces of darkness know exactly where you stand. Now, King David was an absolute master at declaring praise. He included declarations of praise in his prayers and in his worship. Listen to this example from Psalms. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord has clothed and girded himself with strength. Indeed, the world is firmly established. It will not be moved. Thy throne is established from of old. Thou art from everlasting. The second type of declaration is trust, and this is where you declare out loud to the physical and the spiritual realms that your trust is in the Lord. Declarations of trust are way more difficult than declarations of praise. True trust requires surrender. It's easy to say you trust the Lord, but before you start praying for protection and declaring your trust, you must be ready to surrender to the Father's will. When Jesus was praying in the garden right before his crucifixion, he prayed this. He went forward a little, fell on his face, and prayed, saying, My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. Nevertheless, not what I desire, but what you desire. Declarations can be directed to the Father, as Jesus did, or declarations can be directed more outward. Here's an example from the Psalms. I will say of Yahweh, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers. Under His wings you will take refuge. His faithfulness is your shield and rampart. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in the darkness, nor of the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your hand, but it will not come near you. The third type of a declaration is a command, and this is a little bit controversial, primarily because it's misunderstood, and some people have taken this and tried to use it as a way to tell God what to do, or it sounds like they are commanding God to do something. And as I mentioned earlier, that's just foolish. We cannot command God. We do not even try to tell God what to do. He tells us what to do. However, you can't just toss out the principle because some people have misused it. Commanding declarations are critically important when you're praying for protection or when you're praying in a spiritual warfare fashion or you're confronting evil in some way. You would include these declarations to rebuke the enemy. Now, practical examples of this may be deliverance type of prayer or prayer for protection when you're going into a deliverance situation or when there is spiritual opposition or spiritual warfare. Also, when you're doing things like a house cleansing or you're doing a dedication of something, or when you're praying for protection over someone. These are all very critical times when you would include commands as declarations for the spiritual protection for that person or to rebuke the enemy. You can also use commanding declarations to tell your own soul what to do. Yes, you heard me correctly. You can tell your soul what to do in a declaration type of prayer. Now, I'm going to give you a quick example of this from Psalms, but if you really want to dive into this aspect, then consider taking my course on curses, because I deal with how you use commanding declarations both in spiritual warfare and to control yourself. King David used a commanding declaration in Psalm 116 to tell his soul what to do. Listen to this. Then I called on Yahweh's name. Yahweh, I beg you, deliver my soul. Yahweh is gracious and righteous. Yes, our God is merciful. Yahweh preserves the simple. I was brought low, and he saved me. Return to your rest, my soul, for Yahweh has dealt bountifully with you. If you want to effectively pray for protection, then you must be including declarations. If you want to know the last two elements that go into a great prayer for protection, then subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch the other two videos in this series. In part one of this series, I spoke about the secret place. You can watch that video right here and catch up so you know how to effectively pray for protection. God bless you. Thanks for watching.